Back to the issue of online identity. In terms of this very broad topic, we could look at everything from how we portray ourselves online, which is very, very important, to the issue of what digital media has done to the very notion of identity itself. Has technology transformed us or become part of us in some way? Think of the mobile phone. I know I personally can't leave the house without checking for my mobile as much as I check for my keys. And when I ask for any student volunteers who are willing to let me take their mobiles home for a week, the response is pretty predictable. What does this say about us? Are mobile phones now bodily attachments? Are mobiles and similar devices also fashion accessories? Why did you choose the phone cover that you have? Do you have more than one? As you can see here, there are a lot to choose from. Do you know someone who has upgraded a device, at least in part, due to its aesthetic appearance? Adam 1.0 reflected on this issue in 2013. Let's have a look. Robert Ben Dougal, for example, has written in his recent book Digination that the iPod and other similar devices have the potential to recreate our acoustic space and transform our immediate physical environments as well as our relationships to them. McDougall writes of the various ways in which personal digital music devices, or PDMDs, enable the reconfiguration of perceptual space within individualized experiential contexts. These devices afford users a relatively high-resolution sound space that, when tuned properly, often replaces the perceiver both spatially and temporally. In so doing, they have the capacity to fundamentally recast the nature of personal experience. And this is very interesting for next time you're on public transport and you notice that more than half the people on the train or tram or bus are listening to music or some other form of entertainment on their mobile devices. What does this suggest? We might also consider the issue of online identity in relation to contemporary gaming cultures. I spoke about this recently to Dr. Deb Waterhouse Watson, a lecturer in Media and Communication and Literary Studies at Deakin and Monash Universities. Deb's an avid user of the Facebook game Stormfall and another hugely popular game, The Hobbit: Kingdoms of Middle-earth, which involves building up your castle and army and competing in a series of tournaments, often by collaborating with other players who are in your alliance. And because the chicken shop I filmed Deb in was too noisy, I had to get her to repeat everything outside. Here's what Deb had to say in relation to the Hobbit game and identity.
It's on the Kingdoms of Middle-earth game. It's an iPhone app. At least it's an app you can get on a lot of different platforms. And everybody's known by their username. So you have an alliance of the people that you interact with in the game, the people that you work together with. And when you're chatting to those people, then you refer to everyone by their username. So you talk to Ottoax and Colossus, and I'm Xena WL, so everyone calls me Xena in chat. And it was a really big thing when somebody started a Facebook page for the group and everybody was supposed to join up so that we could communicate a bit better. And it seemed like people felt a little bit shy about, revealing who they really were via Facebook, and so people would be starting their post with things like, okay, here goes, I'm Lady LaDonna and I'm, Margaret, or whatever the person's actual name was. And similarly, when we transferred over to a new alliance, then everybody started making these posts about who they really were and giving their real name and a little bit about themselves.
As I've been emphasising, it's crucial that you think critically, creatively and carefully about how you portray yourself online. Depending on what your future goals are, I'm certainly not the best example for you to follow, and I'm sure you've worked that out just by watching some of these videos. But in expanding and enhancing your own online profile, you need to think about what you're going to use, how you're going to use it, and just as importantly, why you're going to use it. How often will you tweet or blog in order to maintain a following? If you're going to use a profile picture, what's it going to say about you? Don't forget that that picture can be up there for a very, very long time. For example, if you go on a holiday to Queensland with your younger sister and she dresses you up with her blonde hair extensions and takes a photo of you, do you really want to be disseminating that around the world for all to see? Another important point to remember is that we never have total control over how we're portrayed online, as pretty much anyone can take a photo of us, upload and tag it, and then others can share or retweet it without us even knowing about it, so there are ethical issues involved here. Should I take a photo of my somewhat shy mother who's not all that keen on the idea and then tweet it out there for the world to see? What can my mum do about this? Well, she can have her revenge by making me think she'd come straight out of a Japanese horror film and completely creeping me out. But given that she's not even on Facebook, if I didn't delete the tweet straight after I posted it, she wouldn't know whether or not it was still up there for the world to see. And now it is again. And we also have to be aware of the manipulation of images made possible through user-friendly apps that can change your appearance. My sister's use of Face Juggler, for instance, made my parents look slightly different. And just in case you're wondering, I did have their permission. It's great to see so many About Me profiles being created, but we want more. And make sure you link it through Cloud Deakin's informal chat area so that other students can see it. As you can see from the statistics, people do look. And ask for feedback, that's really important. Last year in a seminar I asked for feedback and a student gave a great point about me using the third person instead of the first person, which sounded really formal and inappropriate for that site. I changed it right there and then because of feedback. It's sometimes the most intimidating part, but remember that learning through making and sharing is what Media Studies 2.0 and this unit is all about. Please note that I have now uploaded a detailed instructions document on Cloud Deakin and a full example on my blog for the Module 1 exercise. And to reward those of you who are watching this meLecture, I thought I'd give you a few more tips for success here. The theme of online identity is intentionally broad to allow you as much flexibility as possible, so get creative. Extra marks will be given for inventiveness. Being creative is not just about being entertaining though, it's about showing an innovative use of media generally. To take one small example, give your blog post an interesting title, not just Module 1 exercise. And don't forget that while your creative and effective use of digital media is a significant part of this assignment and is listed among the assessment criteria, your written component is also important. Be sure to write in full sentences and paragraphs, for instance. Please note carefully the detailed advice provided in the instructions document regarding your use of images. In order for you to learn a few new things, and to avoid the commonplace, somewhat lazy, and invariably problematic quick searching of Google Images, I've limited your use of images to those that you create yourself or those that have Creative Commons licenses. Producing your own images in the form of photographs or drawings, in effect creating digital media text within your digital media text, your blog post, is a particularly valuable way to demonstrate creative thinking and practice. And remember that visual clarity is also important. Don't go nuts with pictures, and choose a blog site and template that enables you to include a lot of written and other material in an interesting but clear way. My personal preference for my blog is WordPress, but that doesn't necessarily have to be yours. Perhaps most importantly, don't leave things until the last minute. You are working with digital media that is outside the bounds of the Deakin system, and may be very unfamiliar to you. When using digital media, particularly online sites, things can go wrong, and marks will be deducted for lateness if delays arise due to technical issues. We do this in the interest of student equity. Depending on the media you use, you will often have access to help documents and video demos, so make use of these, and research examples for ideas on how the media can be employed effectively. Don't think of my example as the template. Challenge yourself. Try something different from what you already do to enhance your digital knowledge and literacy. You might find that a particular textual form is not as useful for the particular purpose you had in mind for it, so it's important to get an early start and explore your options. You might also find it useful to write your blog post in a Word document to begin with. Keep a backup of everything. A blog post can be difficult to lose, but nothing is impossible. And stay tuned for further advice as it develops from student queries. Hopefully there won't be too many of these, as I've been quite detailed with the instructions, but as always, please get in touch should you have any questions. Leading into our discussion of young people and digital identities next week, I wanted to leave you with a conversation I had last year with a school teacher who engages with this very issue on a daily basis. And in the spirit of continuing to try to confuse you over who exactly I am, I'm going to let Adam 1.0 introduce this section. I had a quick chat to Melody O'Mara, who I knew back in my university days. Melody and I didn't have Facebook. We maybe sent a few emails to each other and certainly a few text messages. But now these days Melody works at what's known as an iPad school, and she's thrown into a situation where students have grown up with mobile devices and social media. Let's see what she had to say. We are here today talking to Melody O'Mara. Thanks very much, Mel, for having a chat to us. Can you tell us a little bit about how social media is impacting on teaching and what you can or try to do?
It's hard to know if you're doing, if you can really do anything about it, I suppose. And it doesn't have to mean that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely there and it's not going away. And the Facebook thing is a bit of a grey area in a lot of schools. Like the school I currently teach at has policy on Facebook usage, as in teachers are not allowed to be friends with any of their students on Facebook, and we're not allowed to use Facebook groups for, you know, curriculum or teaching purposes. You know, it needs to be the school's electronic system or something that's, you know, sort of being validated for educational purposes, I suppose. But that doesn't mean that Facebook doesn't get used at a lot of other schools. Like, it's a real grey area because it's such a new thing. Yeah, a lot of places don't actually have a policy on it, so it's really a bit hard to know where you stand on it, or where schools stand on it a lot of the time. But I mean, kids use Facebook all the time. I can see why a lot of schools would, you know, try to utilise it in the classroom and create, you know, groups for different subjects out of it, because that is what the kids are engaged in all the time, and it's easier to actually get them to use that than it is to get them to use something like a blog or the school's network, or, you know, anything that they have to sort of log into separately. Seem to be a lot less likely to use.
And you were saying before, Mel, that at your school the iPad is the official device, whereas the mobile phone, while unofficial and not necessarily encouraged, permeates the school environment in a lot of different ways. Can you say some more about that and how students rely, if not over-rely, on the mobile device? The reason I asked is that a lot of scholars have actually been talking about mobile device technology as being an almost prosthetic limb from which people can really detach themselves, if you like.
Yes, I think that's a pretty fair assessment of the relationship a lot of young people have with their mobile phones. They're really quite dependent on them and actually struggle to function without them. Like, numerous occasions where I've confiscated a phone from a kid and they just have reacted so badly, and to an extent where you can actually tell that it's, you know, actually some kind of traumatised reaction to having it taken away from them. I mean, they know they're going to get it back at the end of the lesson, if not the end of the day, but the idea of being separated from it actually gives them some quite genuine anxiety, which is interesting. I don't know what that means, or whether that's a terrible thing or something to be worried about, but there's definitely a dependency going on. I challenged some Year 12 students recently to, the next time they get a text message, to not check it for just 10 minutes, just to leave it in their pockets for 10 minutes and not check it straight away. And they really found that a difficult concept and thought that that would be too hard. So, you know, but I think a lot of it's to do with not, you know, we can't, I don't know, the answer is not necessarily to just try to outlaw mobile phones or anything. It probably has to be in educating people about appropriate use of them.
Well, thank you very much again for talking to us.
That's okay.
Ciao. Ciao.
Outtake 1.
And you were also saying before, Mel, that the iPad is the official device of your school, whereas the mobile phone also permeates.
I'm sorry.
It's gonna be late night, Deb.
That didn't last very long.
Another thing we did was explore and critique the Media Studies 2.0 approach. And we reflected... Oh. It's alright, come here. It's okay.
Take 2.
Okay, right, I'm back.
See, it's going to have an outtakes too. This can go for 20 minutes.
This is much more fun than preparing my classes for tomorrow.